I took probably 8 to 10 sessions with AGA, and I call her the gentle giant because she has a very calm presence and a very reflective way of teaching, but what she brings across is so powerful. I have really felt a transformation. So, I mean, she is the gentle giant. Love her.
I'm Deepak. I attended AGA's session. I found AGA is somebody who completely embodies compassion. And she's worked so much on herself that everything that she speaks is fully embodied, and people just get the energy of her compassion. And that enables real shift now. In addition to that, the way she's conscious of every second, she just guides us step by step, and it makes it so easy, so simple for us really to get what compassionate communication is about. Absolutely loved her session. I would recommend it to the world.
So I've attended a few of AGA's sessions, and what I really love about her sessions is how she uses her body to communicate, even for a session which is not body based. If it is a session based on body, then of course she uses it well, but otherwise also I feel like she brings some kind of a theater into her being, and that really keeps me tuned into her sessions, and that's what I love.
I'm a fresher to NVC and IIT, so I was most of the time with AGA. So she was taking the class in a dancing way, even her movements, her nodding head, everything was a dance. So all the fundamentals landed on me against dance. I really liked the way she took it. I really enjoyed very much with fundamentals, with the fundamentals because of her only.
Hi, so just one word, I would say AGA is contagious. Her presence, her passion, and the work that she does along with NVC embodied with our body, I think is simply superb. And she just makes everything so easy and practical, and you're just able to quickly connect and find how it's going to work in your life. And I'm like excited to go and now try it out.
About AGA is that she has tremendous clarity. She wants to participate in the session. She's willing to learn from the participants. She is not, I know the answer, therefore listen to me. And I would say that she has a genuine empathic presence. So everybody can get deeper into themselves. So I think I like the fact that I learned fundamentals from her, because it allowed me to not just get the language, but the being and the experience and the body as well.
So calming, just her face, and she's so centered that I think when we get into her sessions, I just feel automatically centered. And she has this uncanny knack, the ability, to be alive in any of our situations. So like when I'm in my situation, I feel she feels the situation even more than me and can empathize with the situation. And that is the most beautiful thing, that she is totally alive, and her capacity to empathize is phenomenal. And her clarity of even the NVC concepts and the way she teaches with so much passion, it's just a joy to just sit in her sessions.
Welcome, AGA.
Hi, Salif.
It's a pleasure to be with you here today.
Thank you for inviting me into this space.
AGA, you are from Poland, and you live there. You say you live there by in a house by the forest.
Yes.
With your partner and 2 kids, 2 cats, 2 lizards, 2 snakes, and tortoise. How interesting!
The tortoise run away, actually. He found his freedom. I hope he can make it through the winter. But yes, otherwise it's all accurate.
And having grown up in a country like Poland, because I'm not very familiar with the history, but I believe there was communism for a long time. There was Nazis, there were Germans around.
Yeah.
So what kind of an impact did that have on your life?
It's an interesting question. And actually I'm wondering, like I don't have a straight away answer, in a sense that it's a bit like a fish in a water thing, you know, that that's how I grew up, and I'm still discovering what impact it had on me. So what I can see is that I was born and I spent my childhood still like behind our iron curtain. So I experienced both the deprivation in the sense of like queues in stores and lack of basic goods, like, I don't know, toilet paper, you know? You couldn't buy toilet paper, which is kind of a staple thing in Western countries. Or I remember the story when there were shoes available, you know, and shoes that I liked, but there weren't shoes in my size, which was a natural thing. So I was just curling down my toes because I so much wanted the shoes, and my father bought them to me, and I didn't know why my parents asked me to put them on again and again and again. And at some point they caught me doing this, and they went to exchange. Luckily there was a pair that was bigger, you know, larger, and I was wearing these shoes, and it was like a treasure for me that I had nice shoes that I liked. It was not an easy thing to buy. So I guess from early on I learned not to take things for granted. So that's the treasure I got from this bit, just growing up and seeing this. And then you know, there is the history of Poland is very, very painful, in a sense that it's almost like a flat land between what used to be Prussia and Russia, you know, and the armies seem to just find a middle ground here. And in 18th century, it was these two countries and also Austria-Hungary that divided Poland between themselves. And for over 100 years, the country didn't exist, and the language was banned, you know. And so there's the history of really regaining the identity, or like, maybe not regaining independence and holding on to identity, and at the same time being rebellious and really questioning authority, you know. And I guess I have that in me. And sometimes I'm really annoyed when I hear this narrative, because there's a lot of victim narrative in Poland, you know, how we were victimized and all, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be the victim anymore, you know. And at the same time, like recently when traveling, I was telling someone this story that I'm just telling you, and I realized, gosh, it really still touches me, you know. Or for instance, I had a friend from the United States visiting, and she went to Warsaw Uprising Museum. It's a very, I would say, beautiful in this raw terms of beauty museum. And she came back and she was like, she was shocked. She really enjoyed the visit, but she said, well, up until the end, I haven't realized that you created a museum for an uprising that you actually lost, you know? And she was like, and I was like, yeah, we lost. And we lost like in great style, because people were ready to defend Warsaw for a week, and they were there for over 2 months, you know. And the price was then the Warsaw that then was totally destroyed because Hitler just went berserk, you know, and he, even though it didn't make sense, he decided to kill the city, you know. So this is something that kind of lives in me in terms of showing up, even if the chances of, so to say, winning or like succeeding, maybe it's not so much about winning, but like really are not necessarily high, yeah, and being courageous, being there. I think it really, this history is informing what I'm doing, but at the same time it's very much informing where I'm coming from, you know, also in my work. Because, like, for instance, I look into the boundaries, you know, and I have my personal story about boundaries being not being respected, not being honored, and me feeling helpless and really vulnerable and like at a loss of what I can do. That's one of the things that brought me and connected me to nonviolent communication. But then I remember asking this trainer, who was coming from outside the world of nonviolent communication, but anyways, I asked him, so how is it for you to train in Poland? And he said that he really enjoys the people, enjoys the engagement, the passion, like really being there, doing the work. And what he sees that we're not really good with being clear in our boundaries, you know? And he said, and I can get it with, given your history, you know, your boundaries were being violated back and forth, so you probably lost trust that your no counts, and you needed to find other ways to care for your needs. And I remember how deeply it touched me, you know, in this empathic way, but also in the collective, like acknowledging the collective, I guess, trauma or history that I'm carrying and part of, and other people as well. So it's not only my personal story and what happened to me, but I'm really carrying this legacy and working with this legacy.
Just hearing this I'm getting a lump in my throat at this moment. But I'm also curious to know that how you came around and in connection, how did you get, when were you introduced to NVC, when the introduction to NVC happened, and also what impact it had on your life?
Yeah. So this is a bit of my personal story right now, like coming from the collective to the personal. So I was a good kid, and I was like a good girl, and I was a good student. I've always been curious. I guess that's one of my I'd say key traits, you know, just curiosity. So I was great in school like that because I could be curious about anything, and the teachers didn't bother me, you know. So I had some great teachers and I had some really bad teachers, didn't matter, you know. I was curious about all dimensions of life somehow. And then when I was graduating the secondary school, you know, I was wondering, okay, so I know all these things, and I actually, in a way, I'm curious about everything, but what should I do in life? You know, I had no clue. And I even went to this person who was, you know, like supporting people in finding their pathway, and she said, like, it's either like business school or psychology, and I thought psychology, I don't know, it's maybe for people who are struggling with something, this is the belief that I was carrying, and I'll be judged, or that sort of thing. So I went to business school, and it was also something that it was not easy to get there, so it was a challenge. So I went there, and it was nice. It was kind of interesting as anything. I could get interested in anything, but it wasn't really touching my heart, so something was missing. But and then during this time there was an opportunity to start another studies in psychology, like just by signing up an application and have to go through all the process. There was a sort of partnership, and I got there, and there already something started to touch me more deeply, so I sort of started to acknowledge that I am interested in human nature, and that this is really something, it's touching me deeper somehow, but these were still like lectures, this sort of stuff. There was not much of connecting to inner work. So as I was studying this, I also graduated the business school, and I got a job in a corporate environment, and like in many ways it was a great job, it was kind of a success story, which was really important. I believe for my parents it was really important, and for some part of me as well, to know that I am successful in life, I'm doing things like that are recognized, and I can provide for myself, all sorts of things like that. And the working environment was great as well in terms of people. I really enjoyed the people, the work. It was a chocolate and coffee company. I love chocolate, and I could have chocolate as much as I wanted. I would go to chocolate factories to see how they produce. I got to decide or co-decide, have part in decision making what sort of product would come to the Polish market. That was cool. And also I was involved in creating advertisements, so there was a lot of play involved. And at the same time, there was part of me thinking, and like, so what? I mean, I like chocolate, so what? So there's another ad or there's another product, so what? How does it change anything in anyone's life? And it was like everything was perfect about this job. They weren't like abusing me in a sense, like I wasn't working too long hours, work-life balance, but it felt like there was this hunger in my soul for something deeper than that. And and before the end, and there was this hunger in my soul, and but I didn't know what this could be. Like, I had no idea. And it also seemed kind of silly. Here I have everything, and I'm not happy. So it was almost like a judgment on me, that I can't be grateful, can't appreciate, I remember this history of deprivation, in the former years when I was a child, and here I have access to everything and I'm unhappy. Like, what's wrong with me? And I had some idealist ideas that I would like to contribute to a better world, but it sounded silly. Like, these childhood stories, like, what can I do? Just one person? But still, it was so kind of intense, was calling me. And then with my partner, we decided to do a round the world trip. And one thing is that I was curious, as I told you, I was curious about the world. So, yeah, let's go traveling. And the other one was that I had this idea, a vision, you know, that when one goes traveling,
One discovers.
one discovers, exactly. So I'll go traveling and I will discover what it is that's calling me.
Beautiful.
So, and also, you know, it was not easy for me to say no to this job. It was a great job. So I thought, okay, maybe they tell me, like, maybe I'll need to quit the job to go traveling. It will be easier for me to make the decision. So I told them, I want to go traveling. So, yeah, and they said, okay, you get sabbatical and you're welcome to come back. So it was like, shoot, like, damn it. Thought you would fire me, you know. Yeah, so I went traveling and it was very beautiful. It was like Asia, South America, Australia, New Zealand, this area of the world. A lot of beautiful people, beautiful encounters. I also saw how people in other parts of the world live, and I could see again how privileged I was, you know. Like on one hand, coming from a country from behind an iron curtain, I had this sense of being worse than like the Western Europe, you know. There's some prejudice about Poland and the Polish people and whatnot, and at the same time I saw people who didn't have access to basic things, and you know, so it was again this sense of privilege and an appreciation for what was possible for me. Like even the traveling, you know, I went to these countries and people couldn't even think of traveling because they wouldn't be able to gather enough money to even pay for the transportation. So yeah, it was touching me. But
So was that the time that you got introduced to nonviolent communication, or was it?
not yet. So still I was looking, and it was still when I came back from there, you know, I was still thinking, so what shall I do with this? Yeah, they called me from my company a month before I came, AGA, when I was coming back. I came back, same company, same position. Can you imagine? You know, it was like, damn it, now what? You know, and everyone I knew was working in corporate environment. I had no idea how I could do anything else. And then I got this newsletter that said, School of Trainers for Personal Development based on Nonviolent Communication. I started reading about it, and I read that there is, you know, about these needs. Whatever we do, there are needs behind it. And that really struck me. I guess in two ways, because I've been carrying the longing to see humanity in each and every person, like it was in me. So it was like a recognition, I guess, you know? Like this resonance. Like my soul got a bit of nourishment just by reading the description. So I started this program having no clue what I'm going to do with this. I said, okay, I'll be a trainer, but I didn't really know if this is what I want to be, but it was something to say. But when I started diving into it, it really felt so deep and profound that I wanted more, you know? And there was also something about the group. It was the first time there was in a group of people where we really had each other, and this part already, it was transforming me, because all of a sudden I could find my belonging. like a level of connectedness that I didn't know before. And so I started to go from one workshop to another, to another, to another. Like really, I could go to any workshop I could put my hands on, you know? And I remember when I was pregnant with my son, actually I was blessed like that I signed up for this workshop in the same moment that I was pregnant with my son. So I got to live with him and learn from him, and also practice with him this nonviolent living, you know. And then with my daughter, amazing teachers, the children, you know. So actually, when my son was 8 months old, there was an IAT, the last IAT that Marshall offered in Europe, and I was so kind of hesitant, like, can I go? You know, I have this little baby, and I have a beautiful, very supporting partner, and he told me yes. I can see this is the sparkle in you, and I think you should go. So I had him and other people in my life who really supported me to see and acknowledge the sparkle and the longing in my soul, you know. Also when I was still working in this corporate environment, and I had this longing for contribution, for meaning, and I was like questioning myself, doubting myself, seeing everyone else doing what they were doing, and still I had people around me who said yes, you know. So I just found this so important, to listen to these voices in our soul, but also have these people around us who can hear, even if it's a whisper, and really say, yes, I see you, and go for it, for what your soul is hungry for. And that's how it felt, you know. So I went to this IIT, and again, it was like this very powerful experience of presence, of connections, you know. And with this, I started to bring a different quality of connections to my environment. So it was first the people around me,
close to you,
the people close to me, yeah. So like my relationships with my father at the time were a bit tumultuous and painful for both of us, and I looked for ways to connect to him, and our relationship at that point, you know, it took some time, but it really shifted. So there was an opening, and there was flow that started between us, and also I saw how it became easier for me, like not only with my parents but also with other people, that I mean, the pain was still there when something didn't work, or you know, I didn't experience the quality of connection that I was really longing for, but there was way more softness about it.
So something shifted.
Yeah.
And were you able to get in touch with what was this shift? How did the shift happen?
How did the shift happen? So for me, it was it's like the longing in my soul to see, to connect, like to see the other and to connect was always there. And I didn't have the skills how to do that in some situations. You know, when it's easy. And I had ease in connecting, but when there was a struggle, I didn't know how to do that. So first of all, the recognition that there are needs that inform our actions, you know, and then the practice, just sheer practice of nonviolent communication, of stepping into the shoes of the other and seeing the world from their perspective and connecting to their needs. Like one thing, like there were these stages of not knowing how, then understanding how, on the head level, and then within workshops, practicing this, like physically standing and practicing. So I see this as a way, like you can read a book and get inspired, but it is in the practice that the shifts start to happen. And then when the shift happens, it's almost like a miracle. It's like door opens up and you're like, what is this? It's like all of a sudden the flow of love that was clogged somehow, like a wave that starts to move through you. And it may be for a moment, it may be something that you experience during a workshop, that I experienced during a workshop, and then after the workshop it quiets down and it closes down again, but the memory stays there. So it's not only the longing, it's the memory that it's actually possible. And I want more, so that's how it.
So at what point did you decide that now I want to share it with others? Because I'm seeing that how profound it was for you personally.
Yeah.
So you decided to share it with the world.
So it was really step by step, it really touched me profoundly, and I was still questioning myself. I mean, it's touching me, and I'm far from being perfect in this. There's so much still that I need to learn. And also they say that we teach what we need to learn, so there's this thing. But I started to wonder if this is something that I could share with other people. And then I just opened myself to it, and I was looking for possibilities, to share it like with friends, or the School of Trainers offered space where we could bring in and share in this like 1 hour, an hour and a half, and I also asked my friends so that we could do it together. It was really supportive to do it together and practice like that. And what was really important for me from the start, I guess, that I didn't want to impose it on someone. I didn't want to make it as the right thing to do, but like really share it. And this wasn't easy, I remember some workshops that in the beginning I was really learning how not to lead workshops. And I still at points, I sometimes I lead a workshop, and there are, like right now, there are things that are working well, and I'm still learning how not to, and then I'm fine-tuning, and it's
so in some ways it was challenging in the beginning.
It was very challenging in the beginning. I really didn't know.
So at what point was it after you started sharing, or at some point of I also heard you say that you were interested in being a certified trainer? So that decision, was it easy, or how was it?
It was a process as well. So I first came across NVC in 2007. The School of Trainers was 2008 to 2010, and I registered as a candidate in 2011, not really knowing whether I want to be a certified trainer or not. But for me, it was something about acknowledging my commitment to this journey, to the path of nonviolent communication. And I saw the process as such as an opportunity to learn, It's like, I can go to this workshop and that workshop, do this and that. And that there was a very clear structure, and I see that the structure really supports me. in learning, like structured practice with a journal, with some key concepts that I needed to really revise. So there was a list, and it was okay. When I go through this journey, my understanding will be deeper. And I wasn't alone on this journey. So as you can see, like at all stages, there were other people. So here I had a friend, and we were going through the school together, and we were working together on this, discussing and sharing and supporting each other and doubting. We just kept doubting, like, is this the thing, you know? So becoming a certified trainer, what is it? In a way, it's a label. So what do we do with the label? You know, and what it does to us somehow. So when I have this label and people look at me, they think, oh, you're certified, so you should. You should be empathizing with this or that person. You shouldn't be triggered, you know? Is this nonviolent communication, you know? And I'm like, I'm really bad with expectations. Like when I receive expectations, it does something to me where it's more difficult for me, it's more challenging for me to really be in my fullness. You know, and my longing is, this is what brought me here, I want to be in my fullness of my human experience. And I want this to be practice of nonviolent communication, but I don't want to be constricted with these ideas and labels and whatnot, yeah? So what do I do with this label?
So as you started sharing and going through this process of becoming certified trainer, what were the aha moments for you that, or some precious gifts that you received along the way?
I need the question again. So were the precious moments?
Yeah, as you were, what I'm trying to hear is that as you were going through this journey of certification and you began sharing NVC, so what was, are you willing to share some moments where it was really wonderful for you, you know, that something... In the sharing, in going through this journey that...
Like as a trainer, you mean?
As a trainer, as a person, what shifted inside you? Are there some things that you really treasure to this day?
Well, I'd say that there are there are a few angles to that, you know. So one is my longing, like how I want to share this, and then the feedback I receive. That the way how I hold the workshop, it really reaches people, it touches and transforms, and I get this more and more. And this is my longing, so that it's not about me teaching or me sharing. It's not me, but at the same time it is me creating space when this transformation can happen. And when I hear people come and say that they have experienced it, I guess this is the thing. They have experienced, they feel the taste of what it is to be really connected to life in you and in the other person, and the flow of love, life, compassion, however you want to put it. But to me, this is not tangible. It's impossible to explain it with words, you know. Like, I love this quote from Jim Mansky. Words are just pointers. It's pointless to argue about pointers. You know, so when people ask me what is NVC, or is this NVC, this is not NVC, I'm like, I don't know, you know. So when we are able together as a group to land into this wordless space, for me this is pure magic, you know? And I can come and be totally exhausted, and when we all of a sudden catch this wave, it's almost like catching a wave of life and we're just surfing it, I come as if I just spent the night in the most soft and comfortable bed, you know? That's how it feels, that's how nourishing it is. And I'm still discovering how to do that. So there are two elements to it that I find really precious. So one is the experience, and I work with body more and more. I learned from Sabine Geiger and Miki Kashtan. I had some really, and I still have, amazing teachers. This body NVC, gesture-based NVC, of really bringing NVC into the bodily experience, lived, like connect to the feelings and how they move through us, you know, emotions, energy in motion, and lived experience of needs. Like Robert Gonzalez works with that as well. Yeah, how these needs live in my body, and landing in the fullness, you know, shifting from lacking something or missing something, which is a very normal thing, you know. When something happens that I don't enjoy, my need is not met, and I would like something, you know. But what is the difference when I think I miss it? There's none. And when I say, I long for it, this is what matters to me. So this situation, it reminds me about what matters to me in my life. So thank you for reminding me. It's not like this is bad. It's almost like, really, thank you for reminding me. And now I can really own it and connect to what is it that matters to me. And shifting my attention not to the lack but to the longing, and then landing into the fullness of how this need lives in me, and experiencing. I can experience it now, in this very moment, when I connect to it like that. So that's for me the part of the magic in my journey, that from this almost technical through something that connects us, I found a very deep, profound, spiritual space that I would say it really, for me, it's a pathway to inner liberation. And then from this space of inner liberation, when I can land in there, in this energy, and invite people in that supports the people to find their inner liberation, you know? And then I believe that it ripples. Yeah, so
It's so beautiful to hear that, and having experienced you in your workshops in the last couple of days here at the IIT, I now see the passion that you present your work with and the creativity that you bring to it. It's so heartening to experience that, and I just don't have words to express how fortunate I feel to be here with you today, asking you these questions.
thank you so.
Yeah.
So this is it, you know, like when I see you, like
Yes.
it's almost, it's not me, it's us.
Ah.
We are in this space right now.
Yeah.
So I have a sense like it's flowing.
Yes.
It's like fresh air. You can breathe in. And
Yes.
and you mentioned the creativity, because
Yes.
indeed I go to places, different sorts of workshops and modalities, and I keep seeking how I can make it even more accessible, you know? and I'm looking for doors into this, like metaphors, stories, body, you know, and merging it all. And interestingly enough, coming back to the question, what's nonviolent communication, I find it everywhere. You know, my friend is deeply immersed in Christianity, and when we talk, I'm like, oh my God, this is nonviolent communication.
Yeah.
I mean, this was before nonviolent communication, so I guess it's the other way around. But so it's really, it's the language of life. It's a language of love. It's really a doorway to something deep, profound, and universal. That
I've also enjoyed your playfulness.
yeah.
So I'm also curious to know that during this course, because I know you work within the field of education.
Yes.
And you also do some programs specially for women.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it on your website.
Yes.
So would you be willing to talk about that?
Yeah.
About women?
Yeah.
This is a program just for women. So
Yeah. So you mentioned education, so I'd like to say a few words to that, and then I'll say about the women. So as I mentioned, as my children, like when my son was being born, I was already touching on the nonviolent communication, so I practiced with him. He was my guinea pig, so to speak, and we learned together, and I just experienced how profound connection I can have with my children when I'm in this space, you know. And then I was invited to support a kindergarten in Warsaw, like as a trainer, as a mentor, and that was in 2014, I think. So by now I've had like nearly 6 years of connecting with them, and I just see it's almost like another possibility that children, also these little children who don't even speak, they respond so much to this language of the heart. You don't have to speak to them, but just by being present with them, and then they start to do it, you know. So it's not like you would necessarily teach children nonviolent communication, but by being with them like this, they recognize it, and they are like this as well. So when people come, there's a nursery, children from 1 year old to 6 year old, they say that there's so much more peace, like so little conflicts with children. I mean, they still hit each other, bite each other, of course, but there is so much more serenity in this space, you know, as the adults are like that. And my hope is, and my belief is that, you know, well, children have it, they just look to us how to relate to each other, and they sometimes need support. How can they balance and their needs and the needs of others, and how they can resolve the conflicts? And when they get just a little guidance, they're right on it. And then I imagine them growing up to be very different adults who don't need to disentangle from all this conditioning and from all these habits of reactivity. And of course they will still get triggered, but that they can come back easier, and they know, you know, like when I see my daughter, when there is a conflict with her brother, and she goes like, so what's important to you? You know, and she's like 8 years old. I'm like, yeah, girl, you got it, you know, and then figuring things out, but like really looking at needs in a very alive way. I have hope. This is where I have hope for the world, you know.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm passionate about education. So because it's easier. It's easier to do it with the kids than with the adults. I mean, the results come faster in this sense.
They're the future of our planet.
Excuse me?
They are the future of our planet.
Yes, exactly. They are the future, and it's something like doing it from the start instead of undoing it, you know. And they trust way easier, you know. With adults, they have all this conditioning, and it's like, what are you doing here? You know, they really need to know the intention. With the adult, before I say something, I really want to be clear about why I'm saying this way. What is my longing, and to name it. With a child, I don't have to do it. It feels like they feel my heart way more easy. Yeah, so that's my passion. And then you ask me about the women. So about the women, see, for one thing, I'm a woman. So I have an experience of being a woman. I have an experience of being a woman in this world, where also where I'm at right now, you know. I look younger than I am. So oftentimes when I stand in front of the group, I got this feedback of people like looking at me and thinking, what is this young girl got to teach us? You know, who is she? Like, she looks like she's in her 20s. So when I share my story a little bit, they start to wonder, like, when did all that happen, right? But still, so the young age and being a woman, that means in my world that I'm not necessarily treated seriously. And there are also years and years of conditioning into being nice and sweet, you know. I have that in me. So it is my personal journey of finding my strength, finding my power, finding my freedom, and also becoming aware of the conditioning that I'm born into, that there are different rules for men and women in my world and in many other places. And I'm not saying that it's easier for men. I don't believe it's easier for men. I'm just saying these are different rules. So there are things that women are allowed that men are not. For me, that's really soul killing in a way. It's easier to be soulful when you're a woman. It's more allowed than when you're a man. And at the same time, it's easier to have impact and agency and, you know, be in your own power when you're a man than when you're a woman. Yeah, these are like kind of a simplification, but, you know, so I said that we teach what we need to learn. So I am still learning how to be in my power, and I have traveled thus far. And I believe that the world needs all of us. All of us being connected to our souls, to our spirit, to our physical body, you know, feeling our bodies. I remember I heard it somewhere that for a lot of us, our body is just a vehicle to transport our head. You know, everything happens here, and we're told you need to be rational. Yeah, rational thinking. And sometimes also there's the saying, women are not rational. It's like they're too emotional. My God. Yeah, you have to make rational decisions. And it's such a misconception, because you cannot make rational decisions without your emotions. There was this research made on people who suffered from some incidents or accidents, and their brain was somewhat damaged, so they didn't have access to the emotional quality. They had no idea what they wanted. you know. You can't make a decision unless you have some emotional charge about it, whether this is something that opens you up, that brings some joy, you know, positivity, spaciousness, or it constricts you. Like, even if we don't talk about you know, joy or gratitude or inspiration or sadness or anger, you know, but like really on the bodily level. So yes, coming back to that, the world needs wholehearted, whole-bodied people of all genders to be in their full power and awareness, you know. And when I'm thinking whole-hearted, whole-bodied, I believe that when we're able to connect to ourselves, then we are able to recognize that we are connected to other people, interconnected. So by interconnectedness, I mean that we impact each other. You know, what I do has impact. What I don't do has impact. Yeah, so I'm not responsible for you and your needs. I take responsibility for mine. And there is a dance between us, you know. That's a way to really recognize. And then I am part of this big planet. So it's really recognizing the connection, coming back to that. And being a woman, I'm recognizing it for me, so what it means to be wholehearted, full-bodied woman in this world, in these times that are really calling us to really show up for our lives, you know. And that's the first step. Sometimes it's the most important step, to really show up for myself, for my life, to heal me, and then show up in my family. How am I with my partner, with my kids? What sort of relationships I create there? Yeah? And that the community, the city, the world, wherever we are called to do, it's like, I believe that every one of us does our part, you know. And this is also my deeper longing, to support people to find the song of their soul. This is why I call it, you know, this empowered living. It's about not copying others, but like tuning into yourself and finding your song, becoming aware. Because it's not also about being perfect or releasing all obstacles. That's a journey of a lifetime to do that. But finding a way to acknowledge where I'm coming from, acknowledge my history, my heritage, and acknowledge this deep longing within me, and find a way to dance with it, flow with it, so that I can really bring the contribution I'm meant to bring. So this is
I see
the
that as
program of the woman.
a dream that you hold for this world.
Yes. Yeah.
It's such a pleasure listening to all these things. I could sit here all day and talk to you.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, and I want more of it, but I'm you have other commitments, and the IIT is on. So for this time, really like to thank you from my heart of the time that you spent. And
Thank you.